Hello, hello. Welcome back to another episode of Good Grief Life After Loss. Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode. I am honestly just so excited to put this out into the world, to share it with my listeners. I think so many of you are going to benefit from this conversation. This week, I was lucky enough to have the opportunity to sit down with Audrey Smith. Audrey and I have known each other for a few years now. We both went to Babson together, and we were both part of a club called POW, Peers on Wellness, where we would have a bunch of different initiatives on campus educating our peers on healthy habits and what to do when it's your first time in college, how to practice safe sex and safe drinking habits, all that good stuff. So I really got to know Audrey during that time. We also were on the subcommittee, I guess, for the Stall Street Journal, which was POW's kind of monthly newsletter, you could say, where we would write different fun educational articles and then pin them to the inside of all of the bathroom stalls all over campus. So Audrey and I got to work together on that. That was pretty cool. And ever since graduating, I haven't really been able to connect with Audrey much. We haven't obviously been seeing each other at our weekly POW meetings, and it's been a while since we've had a chance to touch base. And then a few months ago, Audrey reached out to me after listening to a few episodes of the podcast, reached out to let me know she was listening and she was a fan of the podcast, and then shared the unfortunate news with me that she had recently lost her mother to suicide just a few months ago. And obviously, I was heartbroken to hear this news, and also just shocked to realize, like, there are people in my life who I know who could lose someone, and I would have no idea. As I've talked about in other episodes, for me, like, social media was such a big part of my loss. And so for me to have that realization that someone that I had interacted with on a weekly basis and went to school with had experienced a loss that I had no idea about was just kind of a crazy realization for me, and made me question how many other people in my life have experienced loss and I just haven't been aware of it. It also just kind of emphasizes the point of this podcast. Like, grief and loss are unfortunately everywhere, in the unexpected places, places you wouldn't think to look, and people are grieving who you wouldn't think are grieving. So I'm really glad that this podcast was able to reach Audrey in her time of need. And I had chatted back and forth with Audrey for a little and shared that in the future, I would absolutely love to have her on as a guest of the podcast. And to my surprise, she said, you know what, I think I'm ready now. Let's just do it. And it hasn't even been 4 months since the loss of her mother. So I definitely felt a little hesitant to have this conversation so soon. But also, kind of selfishly for you guys, my listeners, I felt like this may honestly be the only chance I ever have to interview someone so soon after a loss, for that reason that a lot of people after loss do not want to talk about it. They want their privacy and to take space for themselves. So Audrey and I decided, you know what, let's record this episode, let's put it out there, and hopefully it will serve as a resource for all of my listeners. So I really just want to give a shout out to Audrey and thank her for having the courage and the bravery and the willingness to come onto the podcast so soon after experienced loss and sharing her story with the audience. I think it's incredible, and I'm so appreciative to have had the opportunity to interview her. Before we dive into this episode, I do want to give a trigger warning. There are discussions of suicide in this episode, so please listen with caution. Maybe skip this episode if that's not for you. But without further ado, I'm super excited for this week's episode, and let's jump into my interview with Audrey Smith. First, thank you so much for being here. I know everything is still very fresh and recent for you, so we'll just start with, how are you doing today? How are you feeling today?
Yeah, well, it's been almost 4 months since I lost my mom, and I feel like I'm in a way better place now. Like, even just like so much can happen in those 4 months. Like, in terms of like a grief journey, I feel like where I'm at now is completely different from where I first started. So I do feel proud of like where I've come and how I'm doing now. So I would say like I'm doing well considering.
Good, good. Yeah, I think it's interesting to be talking to you so recently after, like you said, it hasn't even been 4 months yet. I feel like if I were to have done an interview like this, my answers at like 4 months versus 1 year, 4 years, 10 years are all so different and everything's constantly evolving. But I'm glad you're
Yeah.
feeling in a good place right now. That's awesome.
Yeah. And just thank you for having me because I feel like I was looking for a podcast like this, like right after losing my mom. And I did, like, I searched grief on Spotify, listened to every single like podcast that was related to the subject. And I feel like there's just room for more conversation around it. So I like what you're doing.
Thank you. Which is exactly why I'm doing it, because I did the exact same thing, except for I feel like I didn't even know podcasts existed at the time. I was on like Reddit going down deep threads and such a lack of resources. So I think
Yeah.
my audience members will really appreciate getting to hear from you.
Mhm.
Curious if you could just do like almost like your Babs and elevator pitch of a little just like, who are you? Introduce yourself to
Sure.
my audience.
Yeah, okay. So my name is Audrey. I'm 24. I just started a new job in Boston auditing, so I'm gonna get my CPA license. And I'm from Vermont originally, so that's where my dad and brother both live. And yeah, so new to the Boston area. I don't know.
That's perfect. That's perfect. I know when I introduce myself, I'm like, what else is there besides like
Yeah, I
name,
mean, I could
age,
say like my
job?
hobbies and stuff, but I don't know if that's really relevant to like the podcast.
That's great. So obviously you are here being interviewed because you recently lost your mom a few months ago. As much as you feel comfortable sharing, would love for you to just kind of tell me about your mom, who she was, your relationship with her.
Yeah. So my mom and I had a really good relationship, especially in college. I think in high school I was really mean to my parents and we just didn't have like that great of a relationship because I feel like I didn't really appreciate them as like for who they were as parents. I was just like, you know, angsty teenager. So I feel like my relationship with her developed a lot when I was in college and then after graduating, I was at home studying for the CPA exams for a while, so that time, like spending time at home, was really, really nice because I feel like my mom and I did a lot of stuff together. I would like join her for her pickleball sessions that she was like obsessed with pickleball, so she'd go to like literally play like 4 hours a day, and I'm like,
Oh
Mom,
my gosh.
how? So I would go with her to not for both sessions, but like one pickleball session. Just like going to get coffee. She loved baking and cooking and gardening, so like just getting to like either participate in all of her like hobbies that she has and like learn something from her or like just watch her do it while I'm doing something else was just really really nice. And she was constantly like finding little like social events and stuff to go to in the town. Like she was very community oriented and like loved going to like film festivals and cookbook clubs, book clubs, all that. She was like very involved. So just going to her with those type of things was like I'm really glad I got to do that.
Yeah, yeah, that's nice. I definitely can relate to the feeling like in high school you don't appreciate your parents enough and you're just like an angsty teen and anything they do is gonna bother you. And then same thing, like once you get to college, you just like you finally get a little independence. You kind of get a new
Yeah.
relationship with them. So I'm glad you guys were able to have that time, and it's great that you were able to be home and studying and have that extra time with her too.
Yeah, I agree.
This is, again, this one's probably a tough question, so feel free to share as much or as little as you want. But
Mhm.
what do you remember from the actual day of finding out that
Mhm.
your mom had died?
Yeah, that was a tough day. I was kind of planning to work late that day and I was just having a hard time at work. And I was going to take like a mental health night and just like log off and not tell anyone instead of working because I just like it was yeah. Earlier that morning, I I had called my dad like at my lunch break, and so I had like gotten in a little accident, and I didn't want to like stress out my mom or anything with that, but I was like, Dad, what do I do, like with insurance and stuff, like what should I do? So I chatted with him about that, and then that was like kind of the first time that I was hearing that she was like not doing well mentally, and so that was like my first time getting that information, and like I had been on the phone with my dad for like probably an hour, so like I was a little anxious to get back to work. Like people were like probably going to be wondering where I was. And so like I didn't end up calling her after that, but obviously I wish I did now because that's the day that she died. And then so I got home from work in the gym, and then my dad calls me and he's like, "Come downstairs, like let me in." And so I was very, very confused. I was just like, what? I didn't understand. And then he said it again. He was like very serious. So like I just went down my apartment steps, and there he was, like in person, drove all the way from Vermont to come get me and tell me what had happened. And so that was just like surreal, because like seeing someone so out of place, like you don't expect, like he's not supposed to be there. He's supposed to be in Vermont. So like I think in that split second before when I saw him, like I realized like something had happened, because otherwise he wouldn't be standing like outside of my apartment when he should be back in Vermont.
Yeah. Wow. I feel like that must have been, like you said, such a surreal moment of just like, be like, wait, why are you here? I'm confused. Like, why are you at my apartment? And then you probably almost had that gut feeling before he even told you, like, oh, something's really wrong. So
Yeah, exactly. Like so much adrenaline just like went right through me, like just seeing him there, and then I opened it up and he had told me like your mother took her own life. And at first, well, I think he actually said your mother harmed herself, and I had like really had hope that like she was fine and that it was like she wasn't gone. But then I realized like she was successful. So
yeah, I think having the job of delivering that news to someone must also be so difficult, and like especially as a parent to tell your child, like how do you word it, what is the right thing to say, how do you share it. So I'm sure
yeah,
also in that moment for your dad it was like probably had no idea how to have that conversation with you. It was just like
yeah,
instinct to get in the car and go to you.
exactly. Yeah, I that must have been like an awful car ride, like on the way to see me, because it's like having that information, not the rest. No, like you're one of the few people that has that information, and also try like they tell like people say not to drive when you're grieving like right away, and the fact that like he was able to like drive 4 hours to come tell me, like I'm very glad he did that safely. Um, and I think it was a really good decision. Like hearing it from him was just the best. I'm really glad he decided to tell me in person, because I can't really imagine like taking it on a call or something.
From there, what kind of happened? Was it like you just packed a bag and you went home with him, or were you like, I have work, I have to stay? Like, where'd you go from there?
Yeah, I was honestly just like didn't know what to do, but I knew like immediately like work was going down the drain, like I'm not going to be able to do anything. So I brought all of my like I just packed a bag, and honestly it's like it's hard to pack when like you don't even know what's happening in the moment or next. So I think I didn't do a very good job packing at all. I think I packed for maybe like 3 days, and then I ended up staying at home for a month. So um I just like ended up like I had a really nice like family connection where somebody in my town who lives in the area was able to like bring me some more stuff, and my roommates packed me like a more clothes so I didn't run out, and then I was able to like borrow from people in my hometown, stuff like that. So it ended up being fine, but like that just shows that like I really was planning on like going home for a few days, and then like ended up just staying there for a long time.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. I wouldn't even know how to pack in that situation. So, um, and what was it? I guess like what has it been like since then returning to work? That's a situation that, for me it was returning to high school, and I felt like there were all these resources in place, but I feel like in the workplace there's not as many resources for like how do you support someone after loss and welcome them back to work. So what was that like?
To be honest, like, it is kind of hard because, I mean, like, I'm sure for you, like, going back to high school and it's like everyone knows your situation it presents its own set of challenges. But then on the other end of like going back to work, it's like nobody really knows. Like, actually, the team that I was on, they knew just based on, and they all like sent really nice like notes to me when I was gone. But then when I came back, like, I felt like it would have been nice if someone like checked in on how I was doing, but like almost nobody did. So, uh, I think that's just like, I don't necessarily like fault anyone for that. I think it's like people just don't want to upset you by bringing it up. Yeah, because I've been on the other side of that where it's like you don't know what to say to somebody, so then you don't say anything. But I feel like that's almost worse than saying the wrong thing, and like you're not gonna upset them by bringing it up because there are like most likely they're already thinking about those things anyway. So like you adding something on is not gonna like trigger them or anything like that.
Yeah, and for me, at least in that situation, I'm like, wait, did everyone already forget? Like, no one's saying anything. Like, did they literally forget that this just happened? Or are they just so uncomfortable that they, like, can't even think of anything to say? It's weird to, like, it's like I don't want to talk about it, but I also want someone to say something because it's weird if no one does.
Yeah, it's weird to not have it be acknowledged.
Yeah. Yeah. How soon after did you return to work? Did you, like, get that whole month off?
I put in a request for unpaid leave, just because, I mean, it honestly worked out, or my team helped me out and like they figured out how to like close out whatever I was working on, and then I already like was not scheduled for any work for a few weeks, and so like I likely would have been scheduled for something, but before that could happen, I just said like, hey, I need time, because I think they give you like 5 days or something of bereavement leave, but that's just not enough time.
No, 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 not at all. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you took that unpaid leave. I'm sure that was definitely the right move. So,
Yeah, it was what I needed for sure.
kind of starting to dive into your grief journey, and obviously it hasn't even been 4 months. So, I think your grief journey is gonna evolve and adapt so much. But in the months since you've lost your mom, what has your grief kind of looked like and felt like for you?
I think a good example that I was thinking of to like show where I'm at now versus like right after she died is like there was a weekend when I went home and I really wanted to, like, I had a specific picture of her in mind that I wanted to bring back and put up in my apartment. And then I like ended up not being able to do that. Like I couldn't have a picture of her up. I left it at home. I did not bring it up back with me. I don't have any pictures of her up in my room now, but I feel like I'm at the point now where like I could actually have one of her up and it would like make me happy to have that in my room and like not make me completely just sad being the only emotion when I see it. And it's kind of the same thing with like I feel like so I was kind of in charge of all of her pictures and stuff for her celebration of life service. So I have like a lot on my phone, and you know how like the iPhone does the like photos thing and it like recommends like
The
a photo.
recommended.
It's
Yeah.
constantly her and stuff that's like from her service, and I'm just like it doesn't bother me as much now, but like for a while like those I couldn't even like look at those really. So I feel like I'm getting to a better point like that to where like when I think about her, it's not all sadness all of the time. But I guess yeah, to start out um with the grief journey, like I guess transitioning back from home I was surrounded by a lot of like her friends that knew her that are also like just family friends, people that knew her and loved her, and then like it's kind of hard going back to like a separate life in Boston. Um And at that point, like with work and everything, like pretty much any time that I wasn't working, it was like constant thoughts about her and what had happened and like just exhausting. Like, did not have a thought that wasn't about her like all day for a long time. And so now it's at a point where like I feel like I'm kind of like back to feeling like I'm having like I don't know, regular days. And I'm obviously going to think about her at some point every day, but it's not like a constant. Um, and it's not so centered around like what had happened to her when she died. It's more like I think about her and how she's not here anymore and how she's gone and like memories with her, but it's not so centered. Like you get like so hyper fixated on like her committing suicide that like it's hard to think about that a lot.
Obviously, I haven't experienced suicide loss myself, but I can imagine one of the hardest parts is just not having a clear why. Have you found yourself just kind of like searching for answers or getting stuck in questions and things that you can't resolve?
Yeah, definitely. There are questions that like I just now the way I like deal with it is just like telling myself like you're never gonna have the answer and just being okay with that. Um like I guess examples of questions would just be like that morning, did she know ahead of time what she was gonna do, or was this like a like in the moment a voice told her to do something and then like it was just a moment where she could not where she listened to it. That's something like we really won't ever know. Um, Also, like questions of what could I have done differently that would have changed like this series of events to happen. But when I think about that, I think that's like a lot of ego talking of like I think as her daughter and our close relationship, like I want to believe that something that I could have said would have changed what had happened, but like mental illness is just it's like its own evil beast thing, and like I don't know that anything that I could have done differently would have like been able to change the outcome. So I think when I think of that, it's just like maybe it would, maybe it would not have. Like we just won't ever know the answer to that. So like I'm just okay with not having the answers, I guess. Just for a long time, like I did like my brain its sole purpose was literally trying to like think of all the questions, all the answers, and then at some point I was just like I don't want to do this anymore and I don't think that she would want me to be doing this, so it's nice to like have relief from that now.
And I think it's hard to remember this, but it is like when someone is struggling with mental health, it really everything feels so big and heavy, and it's like nothing anyone else says is going to help and pull them out of that moment. But I know it probably is impossible to not ask all those questions and have so many whys and what ifs. But um, it sounds like you've been able to kind of get out of the spirals and the questioning. What, if anything, has kind of helped you interrupt or respond to those what ifs and the spirals when it happens?
I think just being aware of like what my thoughts are, like just kind of realizing, oh, this is what I'm doing right now. What I'm doing right now is I'm thinking of like an infinite amount of possibilities of ways this could have been different. And like just letting myself still keep thinking like that, but then like if you kind of like step outside of it and realize what you're doing, then I think it helps like kind of create some distance, and then you'll like be able to kind of I think it makes it easier if you realize what you're doing. Um, and eventually, like those thoughts won't be as strong. At some point, like you won't feel really the need to keep thinking like that.
That's good advice. Just like kind of step outside of yourself and look at the situation and realize it's probably not helpful to have those thoughts either.
Yeah, just like noticing what's happening and not necessarily like I wouldn't say right off the bat you should not let yourself have those thoughts. It's probably very natural to do that, but just making sure you don't stay like in that place for too long. If you do notice what you're doing, then it's like you can if it's too long and you're like this is unhealthy, then you can kind of try and shift to, something else or like distract yourself with something else.
Kind of to shift to the difference in navigating suicide specific grief from other types of loss and grief, because I think there probably is a big difference. Um, I'm sure losing a parent to suicide comes with so many complicated layers. So are there certain things that you wish more people understood about what it's like to specifically grieve losing someone to suicide?
To me, it's just like it's not even as much of a suicide loss as like just losing someone suddenly and tragically. I think I don't know. It's for me. I know it's like I don't want to speak for everyone with a suicide loss because I know like there's certain emotions that people tend to have, especially like anger after this the kind of thing happens that I just like never ended up happening for me. Like I was just never angry towards her because I feel like I see that like the mental health and mental illness as like something as real as like a cancer or an illness or just like her, like she could have died anyway. Like this could have been like getting hit by a car. I see it as like any one of those ways. So I feel like the hardest part for me was just like not seeing it coming.
I was gonna say, like, I think it helps to see mental health as just as similar to any other illness, like just as if you had died to cancer, like you said. I think that helps because that is the truth, and it's that person's battling with an illness just the same. I'm curious if you feel like people have treated this loss differently though than had it been, from a cancer or a car accident. Like, do you feel like you're noticing people treat the loss or you differently because of that?
I think that people that are close to me and my mom and like our family like know that this wasn't her that did it. Like it was, so I feel like that makes it easier like when people really understand like cuz yeah, I guess the like I'm glad I haven't interacted with anyone who doesn't get that. There's a reason, so like people don't prefer, I guess, the term committed, like when talking about suicide, like it's better to say died by suicide rather than like committed suicide because it kind of creates some separation between like what that person did versus like it's suicide that caused her death, but not putting it on her, I guess. But like I say both, it depends. But I just think that like I like when people understand that this is not her that did it. Because then it's like we can just grieve her for being gone and not necessarily like focus on the reason that she's gone.
I like that. I think that's important. And I mean, it sounds like you have so many happy memories with her. And like you said, like when you had talked to your dad that day, that was like the first time of you even hearing anything was wrong. So I think it is important to remember like that wasn't her on that day. She was like the happy, active person she was in her garden on the other days, playing pickleball on the other days, and that was just an unfortunately bad day.
Exactly.
Have there been certain things that have been the most helpful for you? Like, is there something you can think of that someone said to you or did for you that like was really helpful for you after going through loss?
One thing that comes to mind was like one of our my mom's good friends and like our family friends got like my brother, me, and my dad each like a jelly cat, like stuffed animal. And so like I actually like that actually helped a lot because I would just like carry it around the house with me and like snuggle it when I was going to bed and stuff. So I thought that was very nice. People just honestly being with me, like it helped so much. I had like two friends. One friend immediately like flew in from New York after hearing what had happened, and then another friend came back for like a week or so and like spent time with me. So like just spending time with like friends and like it doesn't even it's just the time with them. It doesn't like they don't need to do anything specific. They just like kind of were there for me. We just like took it day by day together. That was really nice. Um I had a lot of trouble sleeping, so I like listening to podcasts I think helps when you're trying to fall asleep. Um I mean, it doesn't always work. Like that's just the best tool that I found. Like you're probably no matter what gonna have some trouble sleeping, but just it gives something like I feel like if you have a podcast on, then like your thoughts are kind of not as loud because you have this thing that like you're listening to and it's kind of distracting you from like your own thoughts. So that I thought that was helpful when I was trying to fall asleep. Um and just doing a lot of like self-care, like kind of back to basics because like people will I guess when you lose someone like you'll might not have an appetite or sleep and exercise, like all that stuff kind of goes down the drain. It helped me to be able to focus on doing things to kind of ground. Like I did a bunch of hot yoga classes that were really hard just because like it felt nice just being in like the hot room and like having to focus on the workout itself like kind of just distracts you from your thoughts and Also like cold plunging. I did that a couple times and it was just like so cold that it really like shocks you and kind of like for those like whatever, however many, like less than a minute in the water, like the really cold water. I wasn't necessarily thinking about my mom because it's like you're just in cold water and your body's like just like like survival mode. So I guess just like stuff like that, just like stuff to like you could take like a really cold shower or like I don't know, do a hard workout, something like that. I think that would help.
I think finding other ways to occupy your mind is very helpful. And I love that your friends like immediately flew into town and were there. I think that's so important. And I can imagine as a friend, it's like, should I be there? Does she want me there? Or am I going to be imposing if I'm there? So I love that they were just like, nope, we're doing it. We're coming to be with you.
Yeah, it helped me so much because like I didn't have to ask for anything and they just did it and that like made such a difference for them to just like show up. And that was like that was just apart from her funeral too. Like it wasn't even like they were coming into town for her funeral. Like they were just literally coming back to like be there and even at times when I couldn't be with them because I just wanted to be at home with my family, like they respected that and they were still like around like when I needed them.
Shout out to those friends. They sound awesome. Um, I know it's obviously it's very recent, but do you feel like you've been able to find ways to stay connected with your mom kind of as you get further away from her passing?
Yeah, I like to listen to her favorite podcast when I'm falling asleep, which is like the Moth Radio. It's like a storytelling event that happens where people just tell like short stories, and she like always listened to that when it was on live on the radio, because she did not know how to listen to podcasts, so she just listened to it live on the radio. So I really like doing that and making her recipes too. Like I, my dad's he doesn't really know anything about gardening, but like he's doing his best to try and like keep up her garden. So he harvested some of like her rhubarb that came up this spring, and so I was able to make like a cake with that and like a crumble, strawberry rhubarb crumble. So just like cooking with her stuff that she grew, I guess has made me feel really connected to her. Another thing is she was really big on this book called Gather. It's about like this Vermont boy, and she gave it to me like shortly before she passed. So I read that, and while I didn't like really feel like I could read like anything, that like reading that really helped me feel connected to her because it's like this is one of her favorite books. She also at one point was reading the same exact pages that I was. She bought this for me, and it felt very comforting. So I want to like continue reading like some of her favorite books if I can. But just that one really helped me.
I like that. I have yet to read any of Sam, my brother's favorite books, only because they're like 700 pages long. All like seem to not be about topics that I would be interested in, that a 16-year-old boy was interested in. But we have like a little library outside of our apartment, and I saw like one of his favorite books in there the other day, and I was like, oh, is this a sign that I need to finally read this book? So I grabbed it. We'll see if I actually read it.
Yeah, no, you have to let me know how you like it.
I will.
Yeah, I feel like reading the same book as someone, it's almost like a form of telepathy because it's like
Mm-hmm.
the way that like you're like reading the page and like seeing that for the first time. Like there was a moment in time when they had the exact same like first experience as that. So like I don't know, I just feel very connected to her when I'm reading.
Yeah, I think that's a really cool way to look at it. I feel like I hadn't thought of it like that before, but I like I like that. So
I think that's like I did not, that's not an original idea. But like it stuck with me ever since I like read that.
yeah, that's cool. You had kind of just started to touch on it there, but in the future, how do you hope to be able to honor your mom and yeah, kind of just keep her memory with you?
I think eventually like doing some type of community service because she was really big on that. She did like a lot of mentoring programs. She did like a community justice thing that was like serving on a panel for restorative justice in the community. So I think if I were to do something like that, it would definitely be like in honor of her. Um, I was thinking about like making a cookbook for her of all her best recipes and then like giving it to people. So we'll see if I actually can pull that together. But um and then there's like what's even better than like I guess the stuff that I want to do is like stuff that people in the community have been coming up with on their own has like really just made me so happy. Like I think one of her cookbook clubs did a night for her, um, like to remember her because she was like one of their members. So stuff like that. There's like one of those little free libraries that you were talking about in our neighborhood, and one of my neighbors wants to put a little sign on there, like with her name, and say in memory of her, which like is just so sweet. And I know you're talking about like your brother's bench, so like stuff like that. I just think anything that we can do to like honor that person, it just feels really good. So I'll just continue trying to like, I guess, do like have plans and stuff like that, like projects and plans, and just like in my day to day, like even just like I don't know, she enjoyed life so much that it's like if I'm just like enjoying, she was a foodie, so like enjoying being out to eat or something, it's like that's so small, but it's just like remembering.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that cookbook idea is amazing. I really hope you do that. I
Thank you.
think you'd probably be really happy in the future to have that and to like be able to share that with all of her friends and your family, and I think that's awesome. So I think if you have the recipes, I love that idea.
Thank you.
Okay, guys, before I hand the mic back to Audrey to answer the last question of the interview, after we had gone through recording and editing and I sent it off for a final listen, Audrey and I kind of both agreed that we wanted her to have another go at my final question because it's an important question and she has a lot of important things to say. So, what you're about to hear is Audrey's re recorded answer to my final question. I will preface, we did this all on a Wednesday night, and you're listening to this episode on a Thursday, and as we are both busy working people, the only opportunity to re-record was for Audrey to send me a voice memo while she was driving. So, yes, there is background noise, but I ask that you look past that because I think she has some wonderful wisdom to share and advice for young grievers. So, before we jump back into it, my final question for Audrey is what advice do you have for young grievers who are in your shoes and struggling to see the light at the end of the tunnel?
My advice to young grievers is to not do this alone. If you can, grieve with others, grieve with the community, because even though this loss, it feels like an individual loss because, you know, no one has the same relationship that you do to that person that died. And so it does kind of feel isolating, but there's plenty of people that also love that person. And even if they, you know, didn't know them or love them, they know you and they can be there for you. So my advice would be don't go it alone. I found a lot of comfort in spending time with my friends' moms because having lost my mom, like this was the hardest thing that I was going through, that I've ever gone through. And the one person that I wanted to have comfort me would be my mom, and she couldn't. So the next best option is literally like my friends' moms. Like I needed to be mommed in certain moments, and I am so grateful for them. And there was other times when, you know, I needed to go for a walk and I would reach out to my mom's friends or a neighbor and like needed to go get ice cream with someone, stuff like that. If you need something, ask for it because people are there and they want to help you. And it is nice when people just do things without you having to ask for it. But also, if there's something that you need, like, don't hesitate to ask for it. Now is the time. Like, you are the priority. And just let other people help you. Let them bring you meals. Let them go for a drive with you. Go for walks. Whatever it is that you need. Like, this is your time. You're the one that takes priority in this time when you're grieving. And just it doesn't feel like you're going to survive, but you will. We don't really have a choice in the matter. Like, we have to continue on. And for me, like, I found strength to keep going just on thinking of my mom and how she would want me to be, going forward and moving on. So my last piece of advice is just that it might not feel like you'll survive this, but you will. And you will get to a better place eventually. Like I said, it's not going to feel like it, but just trust that you will get there. And just by living and continuing on, we are honoring those who passed. Like, I am honoring my mom when I enjoy a coffee or food and just existing. Like, we have to keep going, and we have to keep going for them. And that's how I get the strength to just, the permission to be okay again after losing them. It's because I know my mom gives me that permission. Like, I know it.
Wow, that was really insightful and really great advice that I hope a lot of my listeners take. I'm sure they will. Audrey, thank you so much for being here, for trusting me and my listeners with your story. I know how raw and recent this is, and I just really want to honor how brave and also generous it was for you to show up like this. I am so grateful for you. I know this conversation is going to stick with a lot of people. So thank you again. I'm really sending you so much love as you continue moving through your grief one day at a time. And just thank you. To everyone listening, thank you for being here. If this conversation resonated with you, you are not alone. Be gentle with yourselves today, and please be gentle with yourselves every day. Again, this is Good Grief, Life After Loss. Audrey, thank you so much for being a guest today, and we'll see you next week.